Welcome to Star Watch Now, your front row seat to all the hottest gossip, drama, and breaking news from the world of entertainment. If it's trending, shocking, or star-studded, we're covering it. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss what's coming next. When Xiao Zhan finally spoke, it wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, almost fragile. But in that quiet, the world paused. Because sometimes, the softest voice carries the heaviest truth. For years, fans waited not with anger, but with hope. Hope that one day, the silence between Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo would mean something more than distance. And when he finally broke that silence, it wasn't with declarations or explanations. It was with feeling. A single line, "He always knew before I did," was enough to turn years of questions into tears. Because the truth wasn't in what he said. It was in how he said it. In his pauses, in his eyes, in the way he didn't need to mention Wang Yibo's name for the whole world to understand who he meant. That's what made it unforgettable. The confession wasn't loud, but it shook hearts across continents. From Seoul to San Francisco, from Tokyo to Toronto, people heard something more powerful than gossip. They heard truth. Intimate, painful, beautiful truth. And in that moment, we weren't just watching a celebrity. We were witnessing a human being, finally letting the quiet speak. No one expected Xiao Zhan to speak. Not like this, not after all this time. For years, he had mastered the art of quiet resilience, facing fame, scrutiny, and whispers with a composed silence. So when he finally opened up in that intimate interview, it felt like the world held its breath. What he offered wasn't a press-ready statement or a carefully crafted narrative. It was something far rarer. A genuine emotional revelation that seemed to come from a place of long-buried truth. He didn't name Wang Yibo directly, and he didn't need to. The emotion in his voice, the softness in his words, and the way his eyes seemed to search memory rather than camera. All of it pointed to a connection that had clearly never faded. "He always knew before I did," Xiao Zhan said. And in that single sentence, 1,000 assumptions were turned inside out. It wasn't just about their past. It was about a bond that had endured, silently, faithfully, and without validation. What struck the deepest chord wasn't what he confessed, but how he did it. With no bitterness, no drama, just tenderness and honesty. He spoke of intuitive closeness, of moments shared without needing to speak, of quiet presence that comforted more than words ever could. And for fans who had sensed the invisible thread between them, this wasn't a surprise. It was a confirmation, a quiet truth finally given voice. His confession wasn't meant to explain the past or reignite rumors. It was a tribute to something real, something sacred, something that perhaps never needed to be public to be powerful. And in speaking it aloud, Xiao Zhan didn't just reveal part of his heart. He honored a connection the world had long felt, but never truly understood until now. The moment Xiao Zhan's quiet confession reached the public, it spread like a ripple across the world, turning into waves of emotion that transcended borders, cultures, and languages. It wasn't just the words he spoke. It was the truth behind them that touched something deeply human in people. From New York to Seoul, from Paris to Manila, fans felt the weight of years suddenly lifted. The ache of unanswered questions eased not with clarity, but with vulnerability. On social media, hashtags surged within minutes. Posts poured in, not with shock, but with something more personal: relief, understanding, and tears that had been waiting too long to fall. People didn't see it as gossip or spectacle. They saw themselves reflected in the story. The longing, the silence, the ache of unspoken feelings. In Xiao Zhan's voice, they heard their own. People who had loved quietly, who had let go without closure, who had held on to connections that the world didn't understand. Art pages began to fill with illustrations of the two stars, not as celebrities, but as symbols of enduring connection. Fans in Tokyo lit candles. In Jakarta, handwritten letters to Xiao Zhan were read aloud in cafes. Across Los Angeles, watch parties turned into moments of shared reflection. This wasn't a fandom reacting, it was a community healing. What Xiao Zhan had released into the world wasn't just a story. It was a shared emotion, one that crossed oceans and time zones, breaking down barriers in its wake. For once, the noise of celebrity faded, and what remained was a pure, human moment. The world didn't just listen, they felt. And in that global echo, Xiao Zhan's voice, once silent, became something unforgettable, a catalyst for compassion, connection, and collective remembrance. Long before any words were spoken, before Xiao Zhan's quiet confession took the world by surprise, there were signs, subtle, almost imperceptible, but deeply felt by those who were truly paying attention. In a digital age where silence is rare, both Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo seemed to speak through the smallest of gestures. A shared lyric, playlist update, a song added quietly, no announcement, no fanfare, but heavy with meaning. These weren't coincidences. They were breadcrumbs left behind by two souls too careful to speak, yet too connected to fully let go. Fans, often dismissed as overimaginative, became archivists of emotion. They noticed when a love song appeared on Xiao Zhan's playlist the day after Wang Yibo released a particularly vulnerable track. They noticed the matching tones in muted Instagram stories, the familiar lines quoted with no attribution, the same guitar riff that once played faintly during a behind-the-scenes shoot years ago. These moments weren't shouted, they were whispered into the fabric of time. And somehow, those whispers grew louder than any press release ever could. There were gestures, too, seen but never explained. The way Xiao Zhan's eyes lingered on a certain date in a fan Q&A. The moment Wang Yibo paused during a live stage and seemed to lose himself in thought right as a specific lyric played. These weren't just coincidences. They were emotional phantoms, haunting the space between what was said and what was felt. In the quiet dance of digital subtleties, a deeper language emerged, one spoken not through interviews, but through intention. To fans, these weren't theories. They were truths dressed as poetry. And they built a tapestry of belief, one woven from silence, sensitivity, and the kind of intimacy that never begs to be seen, yet never goes unnoticed. There are connections in this world that resist definition, that refuse to fit neatly into the boxes we're taught to recognize. The bond between Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo was never about labels. It was about something far more elusive, more profound. In an industry obsessed with categorizing every emotion, every relationship, their silence spoke volumes. It wasn't avoidance. It was reverence. A quiet understanding that some things lose their meaning the moment we try to define them. Xiao Zhan never said the words directly. He didn't need to. His voice, his pauses, his eyes. They carried the weight of something deeper than friendship, gentler than romance, and more enduring than either. When he said, "There are people you'd do anything to protect," the world understood. It wasn't just about love. It was about loyalty, about history, about two souls who had traveled a turbulent road together and emerged changed, but still tethered. What they shared lived in the spaces in between, in the stillness, in the moments fans weren't supposed to see. Not all intimacy is loud, and not all stories need an ending. Some just continue quietly, changing shape with time but never truly fading. And for many who watched them grow, suffer, and endure, this was the love they understood most. The kind that stays unspoken because it's too precious to expose. In choosing not to label it, they preserved its purity. And in doing so, they gave voice to countless people who felt the same. Those whose feelings didn't fit the script, whose bonds couldn't be explained, but who knew, deep down, that what they felt was real. It was love, perhaps, or something even more sacred. In the end, what Xiao Zhan revealed was never meant to be a spectacle. It was a quiet, human truth whispered into a world too often deafened by noise. His words were not answers in the traditional sense. They were invitations to feel, to remember, and to reflect. What he shared wasn't just about himself or even about Wang Yibo. It was about all of us, and the connections we carry through silence, time, and distance. What it all means is this: not every story demands a title, not every relationship is meant to be explained. Sometimes, the most meaningful bonds are the ones that survive without the need for constant proof. The love we never announce, the loyalty we never justify, the person we protect without hesitation even after years of silence. These are the truths that shape us. Xiao Zhan reminded us that not all confessions are declarations. Some are memories, offered gently, with trembling honesty. His revelation wasn't dramatic. It was tender, and that tenderness resonated because it felt real in a world so accustomed to artifice. He didn't speak to reignite rumors or stir emotion. He spoke because the silence had run its course, and because healing, true healing, sometimes begins with the smallest breath of truth. For fans, this wasn't just closure. It was a mirror. It reflected back years of wondering, hoping, and believing. It validated the quiet love stories many have lived but never told. And it proved that some connections are so rare, so intimate, that they live not in headlines or hashtags, but in the heart's quietest chambers. What it all means is that something beautiful did exist. And maybe, in some way, it still does. If this story touched your heart, if you've ever loved quietly, waited silently, or believed without proof, this space is for you. Glowing Star, subscribe to my channel for more powerful stories like this. From across Asia, Hollywood, and beyond. Globe showing Europe, Africa together, we'll uncover the truths behind the headlines. With empathy, curiosity, and heart. Folded hands, thank you for watching, feeling, and remembering with me. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments, in our minds, and in our hearts. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and never stop listening for the quiet stories that change everything.